The snarl ripped through the heat, and Ethan Ward's heart slammed against his ribs. A lioness was trapped, her leg locked in a steel snare, blood soaking the dust. If hunters returned, she'd be dead in minutes. And he wasn't sure he could reach her in time. The midday sun pressed on his back like a weight he couldn't shrug off. Every step through the thorn bush tore at his sleeves, snagged skin, drew thin lines of blood. Her amber eyes found him, wide with pain, burning with the fight to live. The cable bit so deep it looked fused to bone. Flies swarmed in a frenzied cloud over the wound. He crouched, scanning the ground for the anchor point. Somewhere behind, the faint thrum of an engine teased the horizon. He edged around a termite mound, keeping low, every breath loud in his own ears. The lioness jerked, the snare singing a sharp metallic note that made his teeth ache. His multitool was ready, but his hands shook in spite of himself. He had no rifle, no sedative, no one watching his back. One lunge, and she could crush his arm before he touched the cable. Sweat slid into his eyes. He blinked hard, tasting salt. The air smelled of dust and iron, and his own fear. Easy, the words scraped out of his dry throat, more for him than her. She growled low, not moving, the sound vibrating in his knees. Ethan shifted forward anyway, gambling on distance he wasn't sure was safe. The jacket came off his shoulders, a thin shield against claws. He held it low, masking his hands from her sight. Her muscles bunched, he froze, every nerve on a trigger. The leap came, fast as lightning. Sand sprayed his cheek. She hit the end of the cable, the recoil rattling the bush. Ethan didn't breathe until she landed again, panting, her sides trembling. The smell of blood was stronger here, thick and coppery. He could feel her breath between lunges, hot and wild. The multitool's jaws clamped on the cable and slipped, skinning his knuckles raw. The sound of the engine out there grew just a little louder. He tried again, finding the thinnest part of the wire. His scraped hand stung, blood slicking the grip. "Stay with me," he whispered, though his voice was shaking. Her ears twitched, but she didn't strike. Her strength was draining fast. A single thread of the cable snapped, singing like a bowstring. The slack was almost nothing, but it was enough to keep working. Ethan slid a stick under the loop to lever more space. She thrashed his fingers, nearly caught in the steel. The branch popped free. He shoved it back, heart punching his ribs. From the corner of his eye, something moved in the grass. The wire groaned, resisting with every grind of the cutter. Ants bit his wrist. Sweat blurred his vision. Another strand gave, then snapped back, slicing his forearm. He hissed through clenched teeth but didn't let go. The wind-shifted diesel was stronger now. The hunters were closing in. He wrenched the cutter, the final loop giving way with a shudder. Her paw dropped free, fur torn, trembling from the fight. Ethan backed up, hands visible, lungs burning from held breath. She tested her leg, then fixed those eyes on him. She didn't run. Instead, she circled once, limping, keeping him in her sight. Dust clung to her whiskers, each breath sharp in the stillness. He uncapped his canteen and poured water into the dirt. The lioness stepped closer, drinking twice before lifting her head. Amber locked on Hazel. The air between them felt alive. Behind them, the engine noise swelled again, too close to ignore. Ethan pocketed the severed snare, its weight heavier than steel. The lioness stayed where she was, her breath steady now. Somewhere inside him, he knew leaving her here wasn't an option. The sun fell fast, shadows swallowing the grass in long, creeping strokes. Ethan's fire was barely the size of a dinner plate, just enough to keep the dark honest. He didn't dare make it bigger. Smoke was a beacon, and hunters liked beacons. The lioness lay a few paces away, her body low, her eyes half shuttered but never leaving him. Her leg trembled each time she shifted. Pain still owned part of her. Ethan's own arms were heavy, knuckles throbbing where the wire had chewed them. He unwrapped a strip of gauze with clumsy fingers that wouldn't quite obey. The air was cooling now, the scents changing, less dust, more earth, a hint of rain. Every sound felt sharper, like the night had teeth. Somewhere far off, something laughed, short and ugly. He edged toward her, speaking low. "Easy. Just a rap, that's all." Her gaze tracked his hands, the firelight sliding across the gold in her eyes. She didn't pull back when he touched the fur above the wound. The heat of her body came up through his palm, steady and alive. She tensed as he cleaned the cut, a low rumble lifting from her chest. He paused, letting her see the tape in his other hand, nothing hidden. She allowed the bandage, though her tail flicked once in warning. When it was done, she sniffed the gauze as if judging his work. He sat back, shoulders slumping with relief. That was when the hyena started singing. It began as one chuckle in the dark, then another, then three at once. Eyes too many blinked into existence at the edge of the fire's glow. Their paws made the grass whisper as they began to fan out. Ethan tossed a handful of dry twigs into the flames. They popped and hissed. He grabbed a branch, set its tip alight, and drew a line in the dirt. The lioness raised her head, muscles pulling tight along her spine. Her growl rolled over the ground, and the nearest hyena stopped mid-step. Another kept coming, teeth catching the firelight in jagged flashes. Ethan shouted, voice rough, and slammed the burning stick down hard. The hyenas hesitated, then slid back into the dark, still watching. The victory was small, he knew they'd try again. Before he could add more wood, the wind changed, and diesel bled into the air. His chest tightened. The hunters were closer than he'd hoped. He kicked sand over the fire until it was nothing but heat in the ground. Darkness crashed in around them, so complete it felt solid. A beam of light swept the grass somewhere to the east. Ethan dropped low against the termite mound, dirt cool under his cheek. The lioness mirrored him, belly to earth, eyes cutting toward the glow. Boots crunched too close now, voices snapping in a language he didn't know. His hand found the knife in his pocket, slick with sweat. The light skimmed their hiding place, pausing for a heartbeat too long. Ethan's pulse thudded in his throat, loud enough he swore they could hear it. The lioness was still as carved stone beside him, whiskers trembling. A voice called out. Another answered closer than the first. One man kicked something metallic. It rang like a bell in the quiet. The broken snare, Ethan thought, but didn't dare look. The flashlight swung away, then back, then finally moved on. Bootsteps faded toward the engine's low grumble. Gravel spat from under tires, and the night sealed itself shut again. He didn't move until the crickets started singing. When he finally sat up, his back ached from holding still too long. The lioness stretched her neck, then eased down into the grass again. Ethan slipped the canvas jacket over her shoulders. She didn't flinch. The cold had started to creep into his bones, but he ignored it. Her breathing slowed, a steady rise and fall that anchored him. For the first time that day, his own eyes began to close. The hyenas muttered far off, still hungry but unwilling to test her again. Stars drilled through the black sky, sharp and cold. Somewhere an owl called once, its voice as soft as water. He slept in short, wary snatches, always half in the waking world. Dawn arrived like a slow-spreading fire, gold catching on every blade of grass. Mist curled along the ground, hiding their feet as they stood. Ethan checked the bandage still clean, still holding. She shifted her weight, testing the leg, then let it bear her. He poured water into his palm. She drank, then nosed his wrist briefly. A chuff, low and almost conversational, passed from her throat. Ethan shouldered his pack, scanning the horizon for movement. Time to go, he said, though he wasn't sure where yet. She stepped into the reeds, pausing to look back once. That was all the invitation he needed to follow. The reeds closed around them, whispering in the rising heat. Ethan's shirt clung to his back, each breath tasting of green and mud. The lioness moved with care, her limp still there but lighter than yesterday. He stayed at her flank. Never ahead, she set the path now. Every so often, she glanced over her shoulder, checking on him. Dragonflies darted between them, wings catching shards of sunlight. Somewhere ahead, water murmured faintly, a promise in the still air. Ethan's lips were dry. His canteen nearly empty. The ground softened underfoot, reeds thickening around their legs. The river's voice grew louder, but so did the smell of something else meat. A hollow in the grass yawned under his boot, dropping him to his knee. Pain shot up his thigh, white and immediate. He gritted his teeth, tasting copper as he caught himself on one hand. The lioness froze, ears pricked, eyes sharp with something beyond concern. She took one step toward him, the tip of her tail flicking once. For a heartbeat, Ethan thought she might leave him. Survival doesn't wait. Instead, she pressed her shoulder against his arm, steadying him. The gesture was brief but solid, anchoring him to the ground. He rose carefully, nodding in silence, letting the thanks stay in his eyes. They moved on, the space between them somehow smaller now. The river appeared suddenly, silver slicing through the reeds. Crocodile eyes floated in the shallows, unblinking, calculating. Ethan bent, picked up a stone, and hurled it far beyond them. Ripples bent the sunlight. The eyes sank, dissolving into shadow. He tested the bank with his weight mud held firm. The lioness stepped beside him, her paw prints filling with brown water. Cool waves lapped the bandage, soothing the raw heat in her leg. Ethan cupped water in his hands, the metallic taste cutting through thirst. His reflection wavered, skin pale, eyes sunken, shoulders drawn tight. He realized how close he'd come to being the one needing rescue. Kneeling, he eased the bandage away, revealing the wound beneath. The last thin wire strand still clung like a parasite to her skin. Her gaze locked on his hands, but she didn't pull away. He worked slowly, mindful of claws and teeth within striking range. The strand came free with a faint metallic note, almost like a sigh. She leaned forward and licked the scrape on his forearm once. The rough heat startled him into stillness, his breath caught mid-step. He let a small, disbelieving laugh escape before he could stop it. Folding the wire, he slipped it into his pocket like something sacred. Wind shifted, what it carried next made his spine stiffen. A male lion's roar rolled over the plain, deep enough to shake dust loose. It was closer than comfort, resonating in Ethan's ribs. The lioness's ears shot forward, her entire body going taut. Ethan followed her gaze to a ridge where a mane caught the light. The male's eyes burned amber, locked on them with raw authority. Ethan held his ground, gaze lowered, not a challenge, not submission. The second roar came sharper, slicing the air between them. Every nerve screamed to run, but he stayed, rooted like stone. The silence that followed was heavier than the sound itself. Even the river seemed to still, holding its breath. The lioness stepped forward until she stood between Ethan and the ridge. Her shoulders rolled as she gathered herself, muscles drawn like a bow. Her answering roar ripped through the heat, scattering birds into the sky. The male shifted, pawed the earth, mane rippling in the light. For a long moment, the air trembled between predator and protector. Then he turned, sliding down the slope, swallowed by taller grass. Ethan's chest loosened all at once, breath shaking its way free. His legs threatened to fold, but he forced them steady. When she glanced back at him, he didn't look away. A silent thank you passed between them, heavier than words could bear. She turned and slipped into the reeds, her pace unhurried now. An unspoken signal in the tilt of her head invited him forward. Ethan followed, keeping enough distance to honor her space. Sunlight fractured through the reeds, painting stripes over both of them. The ridge and its danger shrank behind them with every step. A huron lifted off nearby, its shadow skimming their backs. The river's murmur returned, softer, as if relieved they'd stayed alive. Ethan's boots sank slightly in the wet soil, his shoulders still tight. Ahead, the grass opened onto something brighter. Whatever it was, the lioness clearly meant for him to see it. The reeds parted to reveal an open sweep of gold, grass bending under the late sun. The lioness's limp was nearly gone, though each step still carried caution. Ethan slowed beside her, scanning the wide plain for movement. Far above, vultures circled, black strokes on a sky washed pale. The air felt stretched thin here, every sound traveling farther than it should. A small herd of impala grazed at the far edge, ears twitching. The lioness glanced at them, then at Ethan, as if measuring his place in her world. He let his eyes drop, signaling no challenge, no claim. Wind swept across them, carrying the scent of warm earth and old rain. It felt like a space between endings and beginnings. They climbed a low rise scattered with sun-warmed stone. From the top, the world spilled away in all directions, green, gold, and shadow. The lioness lay down, forelegs crossed, her breath slow but steady. Ethan lowered himself nearby, back against the rock, still holding the day's heat. From his pocket, he took the broken snare and set it between them. Its twisted metal caught the light. No longer a trap, but still a scar. The lioness studied it, ears twitching in a small, unreadable gesture. Her gaze returned to him, steady and searching. A hawk cried somewhere above, its voice cutting the long silence. Clouds drifted lazily, unbothered by the weight of the ground below. Movement below caught her attention, 3 hyenas slipping from the grass. They came at an angle, fanning out, heads low, steps confident. Ethan stood, his pulse quickening as he scanned for a weapon. The lioness answered with a growl that deepened with each breath. One hyena slowed but didn't stop. The other two flanked wider. Ethan shouted, voice cracking from dryness and strain. He hurled the broken snare toward the lead. It clanged against stone. The hyenas froze, eyes flicking between man and lioness. The growl behind him thickened into a rumble that seemed to lift the air. The scavengers melted back into the grass, still hungry but unwilling. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd trapped. The lioness moved toward him, her steps unhurried now. Then she did something that froze him more than any threat could. She lowered her head until her forehead pressed against his knee. It wasn't forceful. It was slow, deliberate, and warm through the fabric. Ethan stayed still, afraid to break whatever was happening. Her breath carried the scent of river water and dust. He didn't lift a hand. Some gifts are not meant to be claimed. When she stepped back, her eyes were different, unarmored. The space between them felt smaller than the day before. The sun was sliding down, turning the plains into a sheet of molten bronze. Shadows stretched, merging with the first threads of night. Ethan adjusted his pack, ready to walk, but she stayed where she was. She lay in the grass, tail curling over her hind legs, gaze steady on him. He took one last look, memorizing her shape against the land. There was no rope between them, no chain, only something invisible and voluntary. He turned toward the horizon, the broken snare still rattling in his pocket. A low chuff followed him, soft enough it could have been the wind. It found its place in his chest and stayed there. Some journeys, he thought, don't end so much as change direction. By the time the copy was a shadow behind him, stars had started to appear. The air cooled, the grass whispering in the wind's slower breath. Ethan walked without looking back, trusting her to her own world. The scent of her lingered iron, sun, and something wilder than names. His shoulders felt lighter, though fatigue still pulled at every step. Lions called somewhere far away, their voices rolling like distant thunder. He knew she would answer, and she would live. The wind took their scents and braided them into the night. The savanna folded around both man and lioness, each in their place. And the dark closed over them, not as an ending, but as a keeping.